NCAA football.
There you go. Trevor Lawrence just tested positive for COVID. It was yesterday. This is huge news. This is the potential Heisman. He is the Heisman frontrunner. He might not be after missing these next couple games. And Clemson has some big games on the schedule. Lawrence is supposed to miss 10 days of team-related activities, including practices and games. He's obviously missing Boston College this weekend. I don't know if it's confirmed he's going to miss Notre Dame next weekend, but that's the number 4 team in the country, I believe, on the road. So that is not a fun matchup. And, well, Clemson's going to have to rely on their backups. So the question remains, Joe, how does this affect Clemson in the next 2 weeks? What do you see happening? I mean, Boston College is still a favorable matchup, but Notre Dame down the line, if Lawrence is out.
Yeah, I don't think Clemson has anything to fear with Boston College. If they do somehow lose that game tomorrow, then that's not good. Like, that kind of just shows you rely on your quarterback too much right there if you just lose to Boston College. Notre Dame is the game you got to be worried about because you have a pretty good chance of losing if you don't have your star QB. Like, who's their backup right now?
His name is DJ Uiagalelei. Uiagalelei.
We're not going to say it because
we'll say Uiagalelei.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Look, if they lose to Boston College, then honestly, their season, like, they're going to lose to Notre Dame without Trevor. Like,
agreed.
Well, I think without Trevor, they're going to have a pretty good chance of losing to Notre Dame, unless Etienne somehow carries the team, and like that could happen. It could happen, but honestly, I don't see it happening. Just expect like a max of 2 losses right here.
I think there's no issue with them in Boston College. Boston College
there
is
should
not.
Be, but if they do lose, then that's kind of revealing.
I mean, of course. I think Uiagalelei, he's actually been good in the flashes I've seen from him. Boston College is a solid team, but nothing that should challenge Clemson. The big concern is Notre Dame on the road. And I actually want to push back on one point you said. Travis Etienne's actually been carrying the team for a while. I mean, he's gotten both on the ground and in the air the most scrimmage yards combined out of anyone. I think he actually was Clemson's leading receiver for a while. Trevor Lawrence loves to throw these checkdowns to Etienne. He loves to throw these intermediate range passes to Etienne. And yes, there are other receiving options on the roster. But given that they lost Justin Ross and they lost T. Higgins to the draft, Justin Ross is obviously hurt. He's really had to rely on Etienne more. So I do think that they can get by on just giving Etienne touches and hoping that Uiagalelei can find other receivers as well. Notre Dame is the challenge. Notre Dame destroyed Pitt in a game people thought was supposed to be close. Ian Book woke up after barely doing anything against Louisville. Clemson's defense is good, but not great. And I think that if Notre Dame and Ian Book are clicking, it could be a nightmare in South Bend for Uiagalelei and company. So that begs the question, Joe, now that we talked about that, I'll just say that how should Clemson's college football playoff candidacy and seeding be affected if they lose? I mean, with Boston College, I'm sure we've confirmed like that.
If they lose to Boston College, they should be out of it. They should be 5 if they lose to Boston College.
I mean, they'll be out temporarily. I think they can play their way back in if they lose to BC.
If they lose to both Boston College and Notre Dame, they're out of the playoffs.
Then they're done.
No matter what.
Look, I think
if they lose to Notre Dame, they're going to get like to the 4 seed.
Yeah. So the question is, Joe, what is your take? So say they lose one of these games. And what do you think happens to their playoff candidacy?
I think if you lose to Notre Dame, you can still make the playoffs. That will be easier to come back from. If you lose to Boston College just as a single loss, that's going to be harder because it's Boston College.
Yeah.
If I need to explain to you, I don't think I should because it's Boston College. They're not that good. I mean, they're a good team. They're like a good team. They're just like not going to be ranked anytime soon. They're just a solid team that won't beat Clemson ever.
Yeah, I agree. So here's the thing for me if Clemson somehow manages to lose to Boston College this weekend, but then they beat Notre Dame, I think that they absolutely will make the playoff, assuming they win all of the other games and win ACC championship, because they'll take into account, Lawrence was out. It was their first game without him. They came back and won a huge game against Notre Dame without him. And then if they win the rest, they'll get in. I think if they beat Boston College, lose to Notre Dame, it's a similar deal. I think it hurts them less, obviously, because Notre Dame is a top 5 team, 4th right now in the nation, and is really looking great after last week against Pittsburgh. If they win both, obviously they're fine. If they lose both, they're done. I think that it would. There's never been a 2-loss team in the playoffs. I think if any 2-loss team would be considered, it would be this Clemson team, just because it would be without the best quarterback in college football when they lost. But I still don't think they'd get in, just based on the fact that I think Ohio State's going to go undefeated, and there are other teams that will be able to snatch up a spot.
If any team actually had a better chance, if Clemson got these 2 losses, actually Oklahoma State might.
100%. 100%. And that's a team that's been totally overlooked. I mean, they're undefeated, beat Iowa State relatively handily last week. I mean, it was kind of close, but the score was a little deflated.
They have debatably top 2 running back.
I think he might be the best running back in the nation.
See, I didn't want to say that. I don't know why I said debatably, because I was about to say best running back, but then I was like, I don't want to piss people off.